When we think of a castle, we usually imagine a large building, typically of the medieval period, fortified against attack with thick walls, battlements, towers and a moat. We don't usually associate the idea of a castle with eccentricity or excess, but sometimes a structure loses its original purpose over time and is consequently termed a folly. Documentary evidence suggests that by 1187 the motte, or the castle mound, in Southampton was surmounted by a shell keep, probably built of stone. This would have had other buildings inside and a gateway leading to the bailey. Around 1379 a new tower keep was built on the motte. John Speed's map, published in 1611, shows the keep surrounded by a lower encircling wall. However, in the post-medieval period, the motte was used successively as a site for a windmill, a summer house, and a banqueting hall. Follies were a significant feature of the English and French landscape garden in the 18th century, for example, taking the form of a Roman temple or Gothic abbey. In France, follies sometimes took the form of romantic farmhouses, mills and cottages, as in Marie Antoinette's Hameau de Rennes at Versailles. In 1805 the Marquis of Lansdowne paid £1,395 for the site of the windmill, late a banqueting hall, together with the castle hill, and all edifices and buildings thereon erected. Gerald Mornington, in his book Southampton's Marquis and Other Mariners, suggests that it was not for defence, but the view of Western Bay, which had not yet been reclaimed from the sea, that drew him to the area, where he purchased a yacht he renamed the Frisk. One architect who helped to transform the medieval remains was John Linnell Bond. He was responsible for a room erected at Southampton Castle for the Marquis of Lansdowne after the manner of the Moorish architecture of Granada. The result was a structural folly that had little or no resemblance to the original function. An anonymous writer in the Gentleman's Magazine in 1809 stated, "The castle is built with brick covered in white composition. The round tower and upper apartments command a fine view of Southampton estuary, the River Itchen and the surrounding country, but it has no ground, and the base is entirely blocked up with small houses belonging to the poorer inhabitants." Skelton's Guide notes that the apartments are more remarkable for their singularity than for their size or their magnificence. The kitchen, measuring 39 feet by 20 feet, with a truly Gothic dining room measuring 40 feet by 20 feet, containing a life-size portrait of George III in painted glass. The Observer in 1809 stated, "The Marquis of Lansdowne's Gothic castle at Southampton, which we cannot help considering as a proof of the wealth rather than the taste of the owner, is carrying on with spirit, and yet we question whether part of the work will last until the whole is finished, another settlement having lately been discovered in the advanced south wall, and that weighty mass of masonry is prevented by props from burying in ruins its beggarly neighbourhood." Nevertheless, the town of Southampton benefited, and the Hampshire Chronicle reported in 1805, "The vast number of gentry constantly visiting the castle, and the spirited conduct of its noble owner, bid fair to be productive of general good to this town." Again, according to the Hampshire Chronicle in 1807, "The inhabitants were spectators of the grandest illumination that was ever taken place in this town. The Marquis and Marchioness of Lansdowne gave a grand fete to a grand assemblage of high life and fashion. The internal appearance of the castle was beautiful beyond description. The superb windows of stained glass and the vast number of glass lamps on the outside displayed a very magnificent appearance, as did also the display of the table before supper, the doors having been thrown open for the gratification of the public." Unfortunately, this happy state of affairs was not to last, because the Marquis died in 1809. After his death, building continued, as was reported hopefully in Skelton's Guide in 1815. In its present state, Southampton Castle must be regarded as an incomplete structure, but very considerable additions are now going forward. But no architect would wish, from a professional viewpoint, to be associated with a building that appeared already to be in danger of collapse, and in 1816 the valuable and well-conditioned materials of the spacious castle at Southampton, which had been erected at an immense expense, was sold at auction for salvage, its material carted away by architects, builders, carpenters, and anyone with an eye for a bargain. In 2014, a national newspaper reported, "Not such a folly after all," when what was described as a sham castle, once bought for £1 after falling into ruin, was offered for sale for £750,000. Set over 1.7 acres near Shrewsbury, Shropshire, it was sold in 1984 for £1 after falling into disrepair. But the owners who bought the property in 2001 restored it back to a Georgian castle. They spent 13 years repainting and renovating the property before putting it on the market. The site in Southampton was eventually sold, the castle mound lowered slightly, and the Zion Chapel erected there in 1823. Today, part of the curtain wall that protected the medieval castle can be seen in a car park overlooked by a block of flats called Castle House, where the Marquis of Lansdowne's Folly once stood.